Hello internet friends. So I was thinking, what do I do next on my YouTube channel? And I need to bring you up to speed with where I'm at with the collecting so far. So I thought, let's start where I started with Transformers. I was really got on board with reissues and stuff when I started seeing these Hasbro reissues of G1 Transformers. It's one of the things I remember the most about being a kid are Transformers in the shops. The boxes, the way they look, the excitement of seeing the different colours, the sheer excitement of what is this new one, because in those days you didn't know exactly what was available, what was out there, so there was a lot of mystery going into a shop and seeing Transformers, and I just love seeing them arrayed. I think it's something to do with the range of different box sizes. You can see it here. These are reproductions of stuff from the 80s, and you can see every box is different from another box, but they have kind of a unity through the packaging, the artwork on the packaging, the colours. The division between the Decepticons, which are purple and blue, and the red of the Autobots was always very striking. I think probably if I had to rank like packaging of various toys, Transformers is probably at number one for me. It's the unity throughout the line, through the design, but also the variation of the boxes, which keeps things exciting. So I started collecting with this particular line. It's one that's kind of slowed down now. I don't know if Hasbro is doing any more of these reissues, and I got in about a couple of years after it started, so I had to do some catch up, and I'll talk a little bit about that as I look at each individual one that I picked up and talk about how I got hold of it. Because if you don't get in with these reissue lines when they first start, they're not going to roll forever, and after a couple of years they do start to become hard to get hold of, just like the vintage toys. Nothing like the hundreds and thousands that you need for the vintage, but they do become very rare very quickly. So I had to do that with a couple of these ones that I missed in the first 2 years, and then picked everything else up from indie stores in the UK, In Demand Toys, Kapow Toys. I'm not sure if I got any Transformers from Star Action Figures. I may have done, but these were not in the big retailers, Smith's Toys or anything like that in the UK. They were all got through specialist shops, and I think they were all Walmart exclusives, these reissues of G1. So I'll just talk through what I've picked up. Hopefully you'll enjoy looking at them. Let's get on with doing that. Alright, so first up is Soundwave. I can't remember if I got this first or second, but it was definitely one of the ones that attracted me to the reissues first. Soundwave was also, I think, one of the first Transformers I ever got. I certainly remember seeing him in the shop and being excited about him. So when I saw the re-release, I thought, right, I've got to get hold of that. There are some variations with the vintage original, mainly that the insert, the plastic that keeps the toy in place, buzzsaw and Soundwave, is not polystyrene, which it was in the original. I actually like that change. There are a few subtle changes with these re-releases, and I think most of them I agree with. That I'll talk about one that I'm glad they made, because I think they messed it up at first, but I think this is a good running change. In fact, this is the thing with Transformers in particular, the number of knockoffs from China. Now, I feel like we all have our own cutoff points with collecting, what we will collect and what we won't collect. I don't want to collect knockoffs. I don't want to support it. I don't want to import those things from China. By knockoffs, I mean toys that are designed to look like original, either vintage, 1980s, or these reissues, which they do. They look so, because these reissues cleave so closely, those knockoffs can look identical. And I received a knockoff, so burnt straight out the gate. Like I say, this was one of the first ones that I tried, I got hold of, and I was still learning at that stage, and I didn't do my due diligence, and I got sent a knockoff from Amazon. So you think knockoffs eBay? No, Amazon is rife with knockoffs. You can generally tell if it's being shipped from China. That's it. And you could tell the Soundwave knockoffs in particular because of the polystyrene. They have the polystyrene like the originals, and the Hasbro reissues from 2019, this one is, I think. You can tell on the back. Look, and it doesn't help because all the actual official ones are made in China as well. But this says 2019 on it somewhere. I can find it. There you go, 2018 Hasbro product. So even going even further back when these reissues started, and generally the knockoffs won't have that on it. But yeah, Soundwave, really happy to get them. It's one of those molds that I think Hasbro still has and can reproduce. Like some of the cars are problematic with Transformers. They're a little bit, they either don't have the original molds, that's the excuse they use, so they can't do it. The next one that I wanted from the Transformers was one of the early re-releases. Let's have a look at here, Starscream's date. 2017. He was really early in these reissue lines. Obviously we get them on a delay in the UK anyway, but you can see he was one of the first, and he actually has this thing that I don't think is vintage accurate. They have the sharp corners. Now for box collectors like me, we are looking at stuff like this. You can see it's rounded, and I think they were always rounded. And after Starscream, they made that change, so everything else. So Starscream was one, he was a bit too expensive for me. I only got the big stuff like Soundwave on special occasions, and so the Seekers, I didn't get a lot of those growing up. They just miss, but I loved seeing them on the store shelves. So Starscream was another quick one for me, an obvious one, and I really love him in the series. I think he's one of the most interesting characters, the way he's always in the shadow of Megatron, or he's like the Brutus to Megatron's Caesar, isn't he? So I think he's one of the most intriguing characters. Love the box as well, because it was so, I usually got the cars which were a little bit cheaper, and because these were bigger boxes, that's like made the Decepticons seem scarier, bigger, stronger than the Autobots. I always got that feeling from the cartoons, like there were fewer Decepticons, but each individual Decepticon was harder than an Autobot. And the packaging kind of reflected that, in that the packaging was bigger, they were more expensive. Weird, this stuff that you kind of subconsciously do in your brain as a kid to explain all this stuff. Yeah, but I really like that. I didn't realise he was as grey as he actually is. I thought he was more white, but I have looked at some vintage pictures, and I think it's pretty close. Again, you didn't get the gun in the vintage version, but like all of the original Seekers, he's a bit of a parts former. Is that the thing with the original Seekers, in that they don't, you pop the wings off and put the wings somewhere else. There are a lot of parts that you take off and put on again once he's transformed. So you could say, like, in terms of a transformation mechanic, everything is on Soundwave. There's not a lot of extra stuff apart from the batteries that become his shoulder cannon. It's all in one thing, but this guy, he's a lot of parts and fiddly stuff, and that's why a lot of the stuff gets lost from, if you're kids, and if you're collecting the vintage ones. I think to find complete examples is a bit difficult. Right, what did I get next? Oh yeah, of course, Astro Train. He was one that apparently people had been wanting for a while, because he'd been re-released a few times, but never exactly like the vintage. In the vintage packaging and vintage colours, there are variations of Transformers from different lines with different colours nowadays, and people just wanted this classic. You could vote between this guy and Blaster, and I thought, Astro Train is just a B-list Transformer. He was cool in the movie, and his transformation is cool. He's a bit of a carrier, isn't he? So he can bring people around with him. But I didn't think people would go for it. But this is what people really wanted. And I think it was because of this thing where it's never been re-released quite as accurately before. And there's not many Transformers that I have specific memories of buying. Soundwave is one of them. Very, very early memory from, like, I must have been 8 or something like that. But I remember going to Toys R Us and getting Astro Train, being so excited. He's a triple changer, he's a new guy. And I remember that trip and choosing Astro Train. So he has some kind of mystique. It's obviously the shuttle, isn't it? And the weirdness of transforming from a locomotive to a shuttle. It's leap. It's like you're leaping centuries in technology from steam to space. So I think there's something subconscious going on there with Astro Train. People do really like that particular Transformer. And I think he's a cool one. His transformation is pretty tight and good. There's not many extra gribbly bits that you have to keep track of, and it's all in one with his transformation. So yeah, so the first 3 that I got were all Decepticons. Don't know what that says about me. I'm an Autobot boy, really. The next 2 are the first 2 that I really had to search around for. Hot Rod was one of the first re-releases, and you can see, along with Starscream, he's got the square edge. That's how you can tell. I'm pretty sure this is 2018. If not 2017. There we go, 2017. It's 5 years ago already, and by the time I got into collecting these reissues, it was already a little bit late in the day. So I started in about 2020, the middle of the pandemic, and he was not at any of the indie stores. Along with Blaster, the first 2 Autobots that I got. And I had to go to eBay and America. They were not through the roof. It was just a question of stock in the retailers in the UK. So I had to go to eBay with some trepidation. You know, it's coming from the US, a long way away, and how would it turn up? And in the case of Hot Rod, he was fine. He was delivered okay. Couldn't say quite the same thing about Blaster. They were well packaged and everything, but I don't think this damage, and it's not major damage, but he, as you can see, is a little bit banged up there. And because Hot Rod doesn't have any equivalent sort of damage, I think this is probably done before shipping. The person just, you know, wasn't expecting to sell it or didn't keep it mint for whatever reason. But I definitely wanted Blaster. He was early on. He was along with Astro Train, right? So 2020 he came out. Well, it's 2020 on the box, yeah. So yeah, and I couldn't get hold of him either, and had to just go hunting around for him. But he's very important to someone from the UK. Blaster was one of those, along with Swoop and I think Shockwave are the major ones, were never released in the UK. So this is an opportunity to get something that, as a kid, I would never have seen this on the shelves. For some reason, there were some weird omissions from the line. Blaster was one of them. He's very cool. I liked a particular comic run. The Transformers comic in the UK was different to the US one. It was a little bit grittier. It took itself a little bit more seriously, less jokiness. And there was one particular storyline where Blaster was looking after things on Cybertron while the Autobots were away, and it was really grim. Transformers getting pulled to pieces, and Craxus or Draxus or something, who was his opposite number of the Decepticons, and he did a job of trying to defend Cybertron. So I kind of liked him, and then saw him in the TV movie, the animated movie, and thought he was cool as well. So he's just a cool character. If they ever bring out the Dinobots, I'll be grabbing those. If I was talking about knockoffs, if you do want to go the knockoff route, you can get all of this stuff very cheap from China. But it just feels weird to me. I don't want to support. I don't mind like new things, like the third-party toys, because they're not pretending to be something that they're not. But as I saw with Soundwave, they often pretend to be something that they're not. If they all said this is not an original, fine. But there's a lot of trying to fool people. And sell them things that are not genuine. So what was next? Yeah, we're getting to the point where this line started to slow down an awful lot, but there were still things coming out. So I should show you these guys. I loved these as a kid. These were very expensive for what they are. These just card backs and very small Soundwaves cassettes. It took me a long time to get hold of these because, as I was playing catch up. And something like $49.99 for one of these. I just thought, well, I can't have Soundwave without the cassettes. Is that Frenzy or Rumble? It's Rumble. All right. Debate done. Rumble. It's the toy takes primacy, not the cartoon. In the cartoon, Rumble was he had the blue colouring of Frenzy, but they called him Rumble. in the cartoon. Yeah, and then so the actual re-releases of stuff that had come out in the 80s that really got me into it, they slowed down. I have heard rumours, I think it was on the one of the Transformers toy cast, they were talking about the fact that Walmart didn't like the fact that this was meant to be an exclusive line, and then indie stores and small stores were getting the toys before they were and stuff, and there was a bit of bad blood, and maybe it stopped because of that. There's still a chance that they might do more, I guess, in the future. Hold out hope for that. I really hope they start reissuing some of the cars. And you'll have noticed that there are some omissions from my collection. I'm not going for absolutely everything. I'm not a completist. So the Devastator multi-pack, the gift set, which has all the just Constructicons in it, I don't have much memory of that. I didn't have that as a kid, so that, and it looks a bit big and bulky on the shelves for me, so I'm happy to forego things like that. And there are some quirky re-releases like Optimus Prime without his trailer at the back. That's fine. I don't really need that, so I've omitted some things, but then I was really enjoying it, so I thought I don't want to stop here just because Hasbro stopped. I don't want to go for the Chinese knockoffs. What can I get? And they were doing some really quirky things like this. Mashups, I guess you'd say. So a transformer of the DeLorean car from the Back to the Future movie. And I like the design, and it fits in with the packaging. So this was the first time that I sort of branched off. Oh great, it's not the original, it's nothing that came out in the 80s, but it's thematically the same. I like the packaging. So Gigawatt was cool, and I was glad I got hold of them, because also it gives me an idea of the increasing quality since the stuff in the 80s. I still love the 80s stuff, obviously. I'm spending all this money on it. But just the detailing of the cars, and the one that really blew me away was this one. I think this is the best of the mashups that they've done so far. X01, the Ghostbusters Vehicle. And this just looks like a model car, a toy car. It's so detailed and so refined compared to the chunkiness of some of the originals. I really like that guy. And it looks good on the shelf with them. So that was my second to last Transformers purchase. And then this guy, when I saw that they were re-releasing the Headmasters, so the tail end of my interest in Transformers was the Headmasters line. And I thought, wow, fantastic, they're re-releasing the whole line. I didn't realize that the toys inside are not actually the original G1 releases. They're G2, I think, but in really G1 inspired packaging. It's a weird choice. I would have preferred just re-release the Headmasters G1, what you were doing with these guys. But for some reason they didn't do that. And Headmasters, I have a fondness for specific ones, and Highbrow was always my favorite. So I thought, well, these are not the original G1 guys. I'm not going to collect all of these just for the packaging, but I will get Highbrow because I remember loving him when I was growing up. So that's where I'm up to with my Transformers collection so far. And now, as I get new ones and new stuff happens, I can kind of talk about, I feel like I can talk about that, and I've got a record on the channel of where I'm up to so far. So yeah, I love them. I think on the shelf they look fantastic. These evoke that toy store feeling when they're on the shelves for me, probably the most of any other thing. And they're not on pegs, they're on actual shelves, so it's a bit of variety and stuff, and I just love the way they look. So yeah, thanks for watching the video. Let me know if you're collecting these, what your hopes may be for the future, what Hasbro might do that they haven't done yet, and what you're looking forward to. Thank you for watching. Hope you're enjoying the videos. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel. Talking into the ether at the moment and just talking to myself and hoping these videos are of interest to someone. So it'd be nice to hear from people. All right, take care. Bye.